Well, we got actually a pretty quiet week with just cold fronts moving by and air mass changes every couple of days. Would maybe that'll lead to something as far as some snow is concerned for the snow-starved eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England zone. Because we here in the South are not snow-starved by any stretch of the imagination, but we will stretch your imagination tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And of course, you can always support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast in a very simple way, in a very productive way, and in a very cost efficient way. That is, it doesn't cost you anything except for what you buy from our referral link on Amazon. Just click on the link, which is pinned to the top of the chat board or on the description to this podcast. Use the search bar to shop for whatever it is you're looking for. Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. It doesn't cost you one extra cent. So it's really all about, do you want to click on that link or not? Because if you do, you will support us, and we appreciate your support by shopping on Amazon. That's a nice shirt you have on.
Really?
Yeah.
It's an old thing. I
Well, yeah,
reached
I
in
mean,
I reached in to find something reasonably warm today, and this is what I pulled out.
well, we got above 32 today. Actually, we got above 32 yesterday briefly. We got to about 37 or 8. And this morning was the first morning in, I don't know, 8 or 9 days that I didn't have a low of 20 or less. Sunday morning, I got 11. I got down to 11 above zero. It was like an absolute refrigerator here this weekend in North Georgia, but uh, I still have some snow cover because I'm in the woods, so it takes longer for the snow to melt away. The funny thing, Joe, is so basically this was a excuse me, this was a 4 inch ish snow and ice thing, and it happened on Friday. And I was still kind of surprised because today being Monday, there was still a lot of places here in town, a lot of locals that were still closed, and the schools were still closed. Well, they had virtual school today. They don't clear as quickly. The problem is not the main roads because they do take care of those, but a lot of the back roads are tough to get to, and then and some of the back roads are actually private roads. They're not maintained by the county or by the state. So the people who live there have to maintain them themselves. So it's still a bit of a learning experience, but Walmart was open and the supermarkets were open.
And it turned out that here we had temperature reaching to 41. I was actually very, very disappointed about today, Joe, because one thing that did not turn up on most of the models yesterday or most of the forecasts, including yours truly, I was anticipating a bright and beautiful sunny day today, or at least after some early clouds. The clouds never ever cleared away, and it was
Really?
just a gray, cloudy, overcast type sky with occasional breaks in the clouds. And it wasn't until toward the end of the day that we started getting some reasonable clearing around here. But it did manage to get to 41. And I hope everybody who is watching me right now in the tri state area of New York City enjoyed it, because a cold front is moving through as I speak to you now, and it looks like it's going to bring in a new wave of cold and blustery, windy weather for Tuesday and Wednesday before we start seeing the temperatures go back up again later in the week on Thursday and especially on Friday.
What's unusual this week, I think, is the fact that we've got really very quiet weather conditions almost from coast to coast, except for the fact that on one end in Southern California, you have going to have another round of very strong winds and extreme fire danger, which we're going to get to momentarily, and lake effect snow warnings in the same areas that have been getting clobbered this winter, getting clobbered again in upstate New York and in north central New York, actually even down into central New York, Western New York, Northwestern Pennsylvania, Northeast Ohio. So it's the same song, and it'll be another 1 to 2 feet of snow for those folks. I'm going to be curious to see what the seasonal totals are when we finish off this winter. But we don't really have there's no big storms anywhere. It's really just cold fronts this week and air mass changes. That's all we're going to be dealing with through probably through Saturday.
It's true. It's true. And any my daughter-in-law was calling earlier today and was concerned about, she's going somewhere over the weekend, wants to pick the better of the 2 days. Is there going to be any snow this weekend? I heard there might be some snow. No, there's no snow coming. There may be some rain showers on Saturday, late into Saturday night, maybe a lingering shower into early Sunday. Too warm for the white stuff. And then on Sunday, whatever we start off with will clear away and we'll have some sun in the afternoon, still above freezing. It'll be around 40 degrees. Monday could be an interesting day. Monday, we've got the next wave of cold coming our way, and it could translate into some showers of snow, or maybe even snow and wintry mix. But again, nothing really horrendous to look at. Of course, next Monday is also a holiday. It's Inauguration Day, but it's also Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday of next week, so it's a federal holiday. So you have an extended weekend, many of you do, and it doesn't look like all that bad a weather pattern, except for the fact you'll get a bit wet on Saturday, dry out on Sunday, and chill down on Monday.
Yeah. Depending on what model you look at, your GFS seems to be a little bit faster trying to get it in, getting something in late Sunday into Sunday night, and the European is slower. Some of the other models are a little slower. A lot, I think, has to do with the uh, the timing of
Rayo
that.
is not completely ignoring the 12 and 18Z GFS, Tom Contino. Rayo is looking at
That's
all the
exactly
models,
right.
and Rayo is not looking or surviving on one single model. Once again, as I keep ramming it down people's throats, you don't take your forecast and rely it on a single model. These are model guidance tools. They are to guide you in making a weather forecast. So let me just say that, if you see a bunch of models and they're saying one thing, you see one model standing out and saying, but wait a minute, there could be a possible snowstorm next weekend or next Monday. You don't go all in with the one model that's saying that.
You don't?
Okay? Contino, I hope you're listening.
Yes, but
Finally.
he did remind me to remind you, Joe, that Cara orange season has begun. I went to I was at Walmart today and I picked up a bag. So rush to your local supermarket, Joe, and get the Cara oranges that I put you on, if you recall.
Yes. You got me started on that. You got me addicted to them.
Yes, I
And
did.
if you've never seen a Cara orange, when you cut it open, it almost looks blood red. It's a very unusual and a very different type of taste as compared to the navel oranges, which you and I, or at least I, grew up on
Right.
as a young boy. And by the way, just as another speaking of oranges, Anita Bryant passed away over the weekend. And I
Yes.
remember, Joe, I remember growing up back in the 60s, she did a commercial for Florida oranges. Orange juice on ice is nice. I can still hear that song in the back of my. I'm wondering whether or not you can find that on YouTube anywhere. But anyway,
Oh, I'm sure it's there.
yeah,
I'm sure it's there. The thing about the Cara orange is that it's really juicy. It's a very juicy orange, and it's got a if you like sweet and tart at the same time, that's kind of how it is. It's got that sweet tart taste going, and I just love them. I don't like navels. My problem with navel oranges is not the taste so much, is that because they're so mass produced, they're just dry. I mean, you're just basically eating flavored fiber, which it is. It's just like, it's like sticks of fiber that are flavored orange. No, I like a nice, juicy, meaty orange, and that is the Cara orange. So, welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. Welcome to those of you at the background. By the way, if WPC, if you're in the background, I got a huge bone to pick with you, and I'm going to pick it in just a little bit. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure to turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. We are usually we're a Sunday through Thursday podcast with the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around, or if a storm is threatening for Sunday or Monday and it's serious, we might throw in an extra show on a Friday and Saturday. If we do, we'll let you know about it. And of course, if you like the show, by all means, hit the like button. And just really quick, I just want to just say again something I said last week. Please, please, please stop looking at these sites that put up these long range maps of snowstorms 10 days out, 12 days out, 15 days out. It's a waste of energy on your part. They're useless, okay? They're just absolutely useless, and you're just basically falling into the trap of giving these people likes and clicks, and you really don't need to do that. You need to like us, and you need to click on us. That's a whole different story because we don't do that sort of thing here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show
But it is
podcast.
fun to see, especially I came across, and this was the day last week when that one storm completely fizzled out and just gave us, it was Friday, and it gave us, Joe, when I woke up Saturday morning, there was maybe a quarter of an inch of snow on my driveway. Didn't
Right.
even have to do anything because within 2 hours, the nature had done its job and melted off virtually all of it. So didn't have to break out the broom or the shovel for that. But I did see on Friday, and it was left over from several days earlier. Somebody said, "Well, this is not a forecast, but I thought I'd post it anyway," and it showed the GFS with the 30 inches of snow. Uh,
There you
you know,
go. More like 30 flakes or
right?
point 30 inches. They just forgot to put the
Exactly.
decimal point in there. All
Yeah.
right, the watches and warnings map tonight. I mean, really, it's pretty empty. You've got some lake effect action going on around in Michigan and western Michigan, as well as on the Upper Peninsula. As I said earlier, you've got those lake effect snow warnings and winter weather advisories for northern Ohio, northeastward into western New York, and then another area of lake effect snow warnings in north central New York with a few winter weather advisories there. Otherwise, it really is about as quiet a weather day and a weather week that you can have in this time of year. We're now into the middle of January. Red flag warnings, you see them there up in Southern California as the fires, as we've all seen, the destruction, and it looks like another round of strong winds are going to develop overnight. And they were telling folks to make sure that they leave their phones on tonight, Joe, because the wind's coming. If there's any, more fires get sparked in the middle of the night, you're going to be asleep. And at least the phone, the alert will sound and wake, the alert will wake you up, hopefully, and alert you that you might have to evacuate. That's got to be
Yeah.
pretty scary. That's just got to be scary to live with that.
There's nothing worse than hearing the phone go off at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's not supposed to do that, and if it does do that, you know that something bad is about to happen. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh,
what can I say?
we have. I'm going to just bring up the LA Weather Service office, and you can see they've got the extreme fire danger over Southwest California right through Wednesday, and it covers areas north of Santa Barbara, northward to just north of San Luis Obispo, and then of course they've got these purple areas highlighted here where the fire zone exists and is also at extreme risk. You see where Los Angeles is just kind of right on the edge here. Pasadena is in there in the risk for some of these fires. Also, Thousand Oaks, the Simi Valley, and other areas. I was in California some I don't know 47 years ago now. I think
Yeah.
if I 47 or 48 years ago. I mean, it's been that long. So I'm sure it's a lot. it's a lot different from when it was in the late 1970s when I was there. And the Storm Prediction Center has elevated to critical to extreme risk in Southern California for tonight and for tomorrow. They've got the same from elevated to critical and extreme. And on day three, this is the day 3 through 8 outlook. So we can look at the day three. They got a smaller area in California, and then it disappears. So at least it looks like after Wednesday, the the issue of those Santa Ana winds it will diminish. But there's a lot of there's a good 48 hours plus between now and Wednesday.
It really is strange to see this pattern in mid-January. I mean, normally there at the very least is some kind of system coming in from the Pacific. Of course, 2 years ago they didn't seem like they ever wanted to stop with the atmospheric rivers and the storms coming in from the Pacific and clobbering California over and over and over again with moderate to heavy rainfall. And now here we are 2 years later, bone dry. And Joe, I will tell you that the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14-day outlook from Climate Prediction Center shows below normal precipitation probabilities for much of the West Coast, including especially California. And that just does not happen. I heard on the news tonight that the last time Los Angeles had an inch or more of rain dates back to last Easter. And
Wow.
that's a long, long, long time to be dry. And
And this is the rainy season there, so
this is.
the fact that they're bone dry, I mean, if it carries on, that means they could be in a serious drought situation again. Look, California never does anything with moderation. It's either extreme drought, extreme flood, no snow, snow to the ceiling. You had, like you mentioned about the rain, and it was what 2 years ago that they had. Was it 2 years ago that they had hundreds and hundreds of inches of snow, nonstop, one after another. Uh, they don't do weather in moderation there. That's a pretty extreme state from a standpoint of weather. You got
There's,
you got like
I,
10 climates in there.
I said, why would anybody want to live there? Because there's nothing normal. I mean, you think about normal being, nice and fair and dry or whatever. Like the cool, hot. It's in the winter. I mean, go look at Malibu. Malibu, if you live near Malibu in the wintertime when they get all that rain, usually, you stand the risk of seeing floods and mudslides. In the summertime, all right, so you got the heat to deal with and the lack of any precipitation and dry weather. And of course, don't get me started on the earthquake probabilities. So it's not a place where I would care to settle down, let's say, even though, the Californians, there's so many of them out there, and the A-listers love California, but look what has happened, and may happen in the coming days ahead.
Well, our satellite loop is not all that particularly busy. It looks worse than it is in the Gulf of Mexico, northeast into southern Georgia and South Carolina. There's a little wave of low pressure that's going by, taking some light rain out with it. It's mostly clear to the north where I am, thankfully. I just hope I don't get any fog tonight because if we radiate down below 32 with fog, that means everything's going to be ice covered here tomorrow morning. And I've kind of had my fill of it um, from last Friday. Meanwhile, we've got those clouds Joe mentioned in the northeast. Actually, some breaks in the skies. The clouds may have finally broken up now in eastern Pennsylvania over New Jersey. They've pushed more into New England, but there's some more cloudiness back over in the lakes. This weather front's moving on through, and we're going to see the lake effect machine turned on. There's cloud cover up in the northern Rockies that's moving southward. But again, the Pacific, oddly enough, is cut off. There's nothing, weather systems for the Pacific are not coming into the West Coast. So that's keeping the U.S. Mostly dry. And you've got this subtropical jet that's been sending moisture up into the Gulf of Mexico. There's a break, and then there's some more moisture building up down south of Baja. That's probably going to maybe send another little wave along down the road. Radar tonight, there's some rain going on in North Florida. Most of it is on the light side. Maybe there's a heavier downpour here and there, but it's mostly light. In the Northeast, we've got some lake effect already underway in north central New York as well as in western New York, and not quite underway yet in Michigan, in western Michigan, and on the Upper Peninsula. And of course, the West Coast is dry. And WPC with their the liquid precip over the next 7 days. And this takes us into Monday night, 7 p.m. Monday. We're talking less than a quarter of an inch. That light green is a tenth to 2/10. The darker green is a quarter to half, which is the blue. So it's mostly a tenth to a quarter, except around the lake areas where the lake effect snow warnings are up, and also in the mountains of West Virginia. You've got more moisture in the southeast, in Alabama and Georgia, where we're looking at an inch and a half plus over the next 7. And the West, I mean, everybody west of the Mississippi, Joe, except for a little bit of precip in the Rockies, and we're talking a little, a tenth to maybe a quarter of an inch. And everybody west of the Mississippi River is just absolutely bone dry. So your ridge is in the west, your trough is in the east, but there's not a whole lot of action with that trough in the east for the moment.
Right. And again, this is whatever you see here in the east is probably mainly for this upcoming weekend, not necessarily the renegade snow shower, which we may see either tomorrow or on Wednesday here in the tri state area. Much of the time from now through the end of this week will be dry. And then again, with an approaching cold front, we're looking for showers of rain, not snow, for later Saturday into Saturday night. Saturday, you're going to see temperatures ahead of that front climb into the middle 40s, 45 or so. So a nice warm up. But before we get that warm up, we're going to cool down or chill down with colder and blustery winds again blowing here for tomorrow and especially so on Wednesday.
Okay, so now I get to pick my bone with WPC. Now, I'm hoping that it's maybe some kind of software glitch of some sort, because I like to show that map of the 72-hour probability for at least 2 inches and for at least 4. Um, I think that works best. And plus, when I use the ultra short range model that they have, if I go for 24 or 48 hours, then I got to pick the box and so on. But what they've done is, and again, I'm hoping it's a software glitch. It showed up, Joe, last Friday, right before last Friday, when I was looking at this last Thursday night. So if I go to the either the 48-hour map or the 72-hour map, I'm going to go to the 72. Now, they took away the 2 inches and the 4 inches, and the first map that you can get is the probability for at least 8. So I'm just, I'm not liking that. I like the 2. I like the 4. So, folks at WPC, we love you to death, but we would love you a whole lot more if you would bring back the 2 inch and the 4 inch
This is
probability.
just for the 70. This is just for the 72 hour.
No, also for the 48 hour.
Hmm.
It's also for the 48 hours. So,
I saw something. I saw something over the weekend where they said they were having technical problems, technical glitches, and this may be
ah,
one.
and this may be one of them. Okay, well then, I hope it comes back. I know it takes a while for them to get parts. So I don't know what the problem is specifically, or if it's a coding problem, whatever it is. But we here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, we're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. So we can afford to be patient. This is the probability for at least 8, and you can see it's high again up in north central New York on the east, off the eastern shores of Lake Ontario. So it's Watertown, Tug Hill, Barnes Corners, Pulaski, down to about Syracuse. and also in southwestern New York, which includes Jamestown and West Jamestown. You need to know the difference between the two, and also into northwestern PA, a little bit less in northeast Ohio. And then we got a couple of blurbs up here in northern Michigan. But look out now this look out west. There's nothing. I mean, there's absolutely nothing as far as the probability for eight. Uh, Up and down the west coast, up and down the Rockies. It's just a
I
very,
mean,
very
you can see the Rockies, and it almost you can almost see where the continental divide, the so-called continental divide, is. It's right where all of that precipitation is indicating the highest peaks of the Rockies, and it's probably what's inducing whatever moisture in the atmosphere to come down in the form of some precipitation. But you can see you're absolutely right, Joe. West of the divide, over into Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, bone dry, and east of the divide, yeah, a little bit more in terms of precipitation, but then you get into the plains and the Midwest, and it dries out completely again. So
yeah.
it's amazing.
Chuck Cardillo got my reference to Jamestown and West Jamestown. Thank you, Chuck. You are correct. And Joe, while I'm doing this, Dale Bog Boguki Boju, I apologize ahead of time. Dale on the chat board would like if you would show the drought maps.
Well, if you give me sharing capabilities, I'll be happy to show the drought map.
Okay, sure. Of course, you know how generous a person I am. I'm always willing to give you sharing capabilities. Do you want to do it now or do you want to wait?
I'll do
Uh,
whenever you'd like me to do it. I'll do it.
hold off for a second. Hold off for a second. Let's look ahead to what may or may not happen. So I've got the upper air up, and now we're past this weekend, and of course, this weekend was all about the fact that the southern stream shortwave and the northern stream shortwave never phased, so that moved out. Now, of course, we've got another shortwave trough moving through into the northeast, and you can see there's this vortex that's dropping down into Minnesota. So this is the latest shot of cold air. You'll notice, by the way, the winds in the west, okay, in the western part of the United States, are not coming in off the Pacific. They're actually coming in from Western Canada and maybe with a little bit of a pass through over the Gulf of Alaska. That is not a moist airflow. There's an upper high to the east, so the Pacific jet is nowhere to be seen. There isn't even a southern extension of that jet to bring in. There's a weak subtropical jet here because of this upper low that's off Southern California. So it's mainly all about Canadian air. So with an upper pattern like this, you ain't going to get any storms. Let's put it that way. It's a very, relatively flat pattern from the standpoint of storm development, but you do get these glancing shots of cold air. And here's a trough that's going to come through late tomorrow or tomorrow night. And that is going to bring in more of that cold air to go into Wednesday and into Thursday. And then one more trough on Thursday before it pulls out. Now, here's where things get a little more interesting as we go into the weekend because you're going to have to replace the cold air that is moving out, and you're going to eventually do that. There's a little bit of a southern jet that's moving along. So there might be a little bit of precip perhaps later on Saturday into Saturday evening. And as Joe mentioned, drying out on Sunday. And then the upper flow, we're going to have what I love to call, Joe, the broad bowl. Because if you look at this way this is all set up, by the time we get to Sunday, it's this sort of really broad jet stream that goes northwest flow from Canada down the Rockies into the deep south, and then it sort of gently turns west southwest and off the east coast. There's not a whole lot of definition here with any of the short waves that are running around, and there is one shortwave here on Sunday that the GFS picks on. It's again, it's not. You'll notice it's not a V shape. It's more like this sort of very broad, kind of gentleish, and that is going to be moving along and lifting up to the northeast. So that's what the GFS is focusing on for late Sunday into Sunday night for the potential maybe for a little bit of snow. Now, the European, on the other hand, because there's always another hand, has a has that short wave much further south and west, and it takes longer for it to come out. But once again, it's doing one of these things where it's leaving the southern stream shortwave behind, and then swinging the northern part through. So it kind of means, with the European, it would be more like Monday. And I think with the Canadian was also more like Monday. And I think you could make the same case for the icon, if you extended it out far enough. So, the models will figure out the timing in some fashion, but the European seems to have the hot hand here. So I'm going to go with you and think that it might be more along the lines of Monday if we see something, rather than late Sunday into early Monday morning.
Right. On Monday, it'll turn noticeably colder or decidedly colder as opposed to what we're going to see over this upcoming weekend. As I said, too warm for the white stuff or frozen stuff on Saturday, so we'll just go for rain and showers, maybe ending by early Sunday, if not sooner. Sunday itself, we may see some clearing. Temperatures still well above freezing at around 40, but then the much colder shot of air coming in for Sunday night into Monday. And if there's any kind of a wave or ripple developing on the trailing end of that upper trough, that might give us a glancing blow with some showers of snow, or maybe, if we're not fully cold enough at all levels of the atmosphere, maybe a little sleet or wintry mix. I don't know, but it doesn't look like a major thing to get too concerned at least as of this point right now for our area. And again, don't forget that, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do on Monday, Joe. It is, of course, Inauguration Day, and I do remember when President Reagan was inaugurated. I think it was in 1984. His second inauguration was so bitterly cold that they had to actually have all the festivities indoors. It's not going to be that way temperature-wise next Monday, but it is going to be colder, and it'll be rather uncomfortable, I think, for anyone who is standing outside for more than, let's say, an hour or two for the festivities on Monday. Then again, remember, 1961, John Kennedy was inaugurated on the heels of a major snowstorm in Washington, and I know it had to be very cold on the day of the inauguration. It was bright and sunny, but cold. So again, anyone who comes to Washington for the inauguration on Monday, all I could say is make sure you're bundled up properly, because it is going to be a much chillier weather regime as opposed to what we're going to be seeing over the upcoming weekend.
Well, we do have also a front on Saturday with some rain or showers that may come through. I pulled up the European from yesterday because I just want to show a lot of folks in the South, at least. The European had this wave in the Northeast, and it actually had it for later Sunday into Sunday night. Now it's kind of slowed it down. It also had a second wave that develops in the Western Gulf, and brought, was trying to show significant snows across the deep South. Now that was yesterday. It's got a much flatter look today for the same time frame. It has nothing. So we're at this place right now where models have it, they lose it, they have it, they lose it. The one thing that stayed common between both yesterday and today is the fact that there is going to be a a very cold high air mass coming down out of Canada, and it's going to plunge all the way down into Texas and into the southeast. Some of it's going to get into northern Florida. The frontal boundary is probably going to stall out there across Florida, so they may have some clouds and rain at least for a while. But at the moment, the um, the actual surface plots are not really showing anything. And when we look at the upper air, it's kind of hard to really pick out anything definable in that southern stream because you have this really broad bowl flow with the upper air. Deep trough, but deep cold trough, but not a whole lot running around. So I really wouldn't worry too much about it right now at all. In fact, I'll tell you right now, it's Monday. We're talking about maybe the middle of next week. I wouldn't even be thinking about it at all. So just leave it be. Please try and, as I said, just please make an effort to try and ignore what goes up on social media. Okay, it's all BS. Okay, it's all nonsense. It's not weather forecasting. Okay, what they're doing is not weather forecasting. They have no idea what's going on in the atmosphere and could care less. They're just finding these hyped up maps on the models and showing it to you, and you know, kind of just trying to drive engagement so that they make some money for themselves. And my personal opinion is it's grossly irresponsible. But that's you know, these days our voices don't seem to get much don't seem to have much effect. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. So there you go. Go ahead and do the drought maps.
Okay, first of all, we did hit 100. We're actually up to 102 on my counter
Oh,
here.
I'm at 112.
You're at 112. I don't know why. There's some days when my counter is rolling around like crazy and catching up and staying with all the changes. And then there are other days like today where it just simply doesn't want to move. So I just had to refresh for the umpteenth time, and mine now says 113. Also, Ruben Fairchild, you are correct. Ronald Reagan, I was thinking about the election years. Reagan was elected in 80 and again in 84, but the inaugurations were the following year, January of 81, January of 85, and it was January of 85 where it was bitter cold and they had to hold the festivities indoors because it was so very, very cold outside. It will be cold. It won't be as cold as that this coming Monday for the inauguration, but still, it will be uncomfortable unless you bundle up. And I see PP Face 12 is on the
Oh,
chat.
PPV, it's our reason. He's our reason for living.
Yes, exactly. All right, so let's go now to the sharing of the Zoom, and let me share the information on the Climate Prediction Center, the drought map, which I will do right now. And let's go to the drought map here and show you the drought monitor. There is the United States as a whole. Let's look first at the Northeast, and we will show you that southern New Jersey, southern and central New Jersey is still in an extreme drought situation. To the north, across the rest of the state, severe drought. Here in the Hudson Valley, I'm kind of surprised here because they have where I live, Joe, also in severe drought.
Really?
Meanwhile, the rest of the Hudson Valley is in just simply moderate drought. It's also moderate drought across Nassau County, western Suffolk County, New York City. Meanwhile, in the middle of Long Island, we have just abnormally dry conditions, so no real drought problems, except it is a little bit on the dry side there. Rest of New York State, upstate New York, abnormally dry, but central and western New York, for the most part, out of the drought problem, so no real problems there in terms of a drought situation. But now, why don't we take a look at out west, out in California, and first of all, you can see out west there are many places that are in an extreme drought situation. Southern sections of Nevada, western sections of Arizona, northwestern regions of Wyoming, also northern Wyoming and into central Montana, a portion of western Montana, all of these places in the red in an extreme drought. And if we take a look at California and you're wondering what's going on in Los Angeles, well, in Los Angeles right now, they are ranked in a severe drought. No kidding. Most of the rest of Southern California in a moderate drought. But meanwhile, in central sections of California, abnormally dry, and in Northern California, no drought to speak of, none whatsoever. Extreme eastern California, southeastern California, adjacent to Arizona, the boundary line of Arizona. This is in San Bernardino County. They are in extreme drought. But again, Los Angeles, right now, Orange County, for example, they are seeing severe drought and no precipitation. Let me just bring that up. The 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14 day outlook from Climate Prediction Center. First, and take a look at this, Joe. You talk about cold weather. Climate Prediction Center calling for a large area of abnormally cold conditions, probability of cold conditions across the nation's midsection, extending into a part of the eastern United States. This is for the 19th through the 23rd of this month of January. And as far as precipitation is concerned, look at this. Again, this is the time of the year when you would expect wet conditions. Usually, storms coming in from the Pacific. But look at this. This is unbelievable. You wouldn't think that this is mid to late January, but all of this in the brown is below normal, particularly so over northern sections of California, northwestern Nevada, southern sections of Oregon, and down into California. Here's Southern California. They too are below normal in terms of precipitation, in terms of probability. And does it get any better on the 8 to 14 day outlook? No, it doesn't. Still below normal out west. Also below normal across a swath of the Midwest, the lower Great Lakes, into the Northeast, near normal for us and across the Mid-Atlantic, and above normal over the southeastern United States, including Florida, and also down across the Gulf Coast. The places with the greatest probability of getting wet in the 8 to 14 day outlook: Texas Gulf Coast, Louisiana Gulf Coast, and also into a portion of central and eastern Montana, northeastern Wyoming, and a sliver or a slice of western North Dakota and northwestern South Dakota. But most everybody else is either near normal or below normal in terms of precipitation.
All right. So let's do some Briller Jeopardy. Are you ready?
Yes.
So we're doing average highs for the month of January. And we're going to start with, uh, I'm going to actually switch the order around. So we're going to start with Cleveland, Ohio.
And what is this now? Average high temperatures in
Average
January?
high temperature for January in Cleveland.
I'll say 38.
Close, a little high. Johnny Sachs already hit it on the nose at 36. So did Brandon Grablicov
I'll give
at
give him a bell ring.
36. Frank R at 36. Now we're gonna stay in Ohio and head south. And Joe, you know that there's not another from Cleveland. There's not another thing clean to Cincinnati.
So is it Cincinnati or Cleveland?
We just did Cleveland.
Oh, that's right.
Ethel to Tilly, come in,
Yes.
Tilly, over.
Yes.
We just did
So how
Cleveland.
so how about 41?
Ooh, and it's just so close. But William Uber and Rich Rothmansky and Brandon Grablichoff and then anybody else? Yeah, Mike Waterhouse, Bonsai, Patrick Darcy hitting it at 40, 40 for Cincinnati. Uh, Dallas, which had about an inch or two in the south part of the city and 4 inches plus in the north part of the city from the storm system late last week. Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Well, I will take a shot and say 57.
Oh, also extremely close. Kenneth Rosenberg is also extremely close. Rich Rothmansky, David Fuller, Shrubby, Paul Roman, Chuck Cardillo, and Frank Scalera, 58, Joe, 58. 58.
Okay.
Um, okay, Detroit, home of the
Detroit.
Lions, Detroit.
Now, didn't we do? Well, I think maybe it was in terms of snow cover. I
Yes.
was way off. Well, I was way off with that because I was thinking about Ann Arbor.
Hmm.
Detroit, average high temperature.
Hmm. Yes.
How about 34?
Another close one. Jason Barry, Rich Rothmansky, Brandon Grablichoff. You're on a hot streak, Brandon, unless you're Googling. Uh, Chuck Cardillo, uh, try to make sure I get everybody. Conroy Jet 32, 32, and Hartford, Connecticut.
Hartford.
Hmm.
Um, how about 39?
No, it's a little high, Joe. A little high. Patrick Darcy got it off the bat, though, and then so did William Uber. 35 from Hartford. 35.
Really, it's that cold
Yeah.
for the average high in January? That's
Well, they're in the
amazing.
valley there in Hartford.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
And the bonus is Sault Ste. Marie, or if you want to just be, read it like someone from Brooklyn, Sault Ste. Marie, Sault Ste. Marie.
How about 19?
You're right to go low. That's just a little too low.
Okay.
Just a little, not a lot. And Jason Barry, you're very close, but you're a shade too high. William Uber, you're very close, but a shade too low. And Mike Waterhouse Bonsai and Brandon and Norm Roberts, 22, Joe.
Double
22.
deuce.
Double to Snake Eyes. And if I worked at Channel 11, I wouldn't be able to say that.
You wouldn't be seen on Channel 11.
That's right.
You know
Yes.
why, right?
What's that?
You know why you wouldn't be seen on channel. Well, it depends upon what cable service you have. All of us who have Optum,
Yeah,
formerly Cablevision,
right.
there's a dispute going on with Channel 11, so we have
Oh,
not
so you're
had.
not even seeing, so you don't get, oh, pshaw. I'm broken
Yep.
up about, Joe, my heart is cracking as we speak. I'm broken up about it. So,
I'm.
oh yeah, do your, oh, you know, and I've seen this happen before, and I wanted to ask you, they keep coming and showing up this thing where like all the planets are going to line up in a straight line or something.
Well, there's not a straight line alignment, but we've got four planets in our evening sky now. One of them is going to undergo an eclipse tonight, and that's what the diagram is on the screen is right now. The planet Mars is going to undergo what is known in the astronomical circles tonight as an occultation. The moon is only a quarter of a million miles away. Mars is about 60 million miles from the Earth. And so the moon is going to pass in front of Mars and hide it for a while. And what you see on the screen is the path that the planet Mars will take behind the moon tonight, depending upon where you are. If you're in the northwest part of the United States, like in Seattle, it'll just skim the top of the moon. If you're in the southeastern part of this country, like in Miami, Florida, it'll skim the bottom of the moon. New York, it's going to go almost right straight across the middle, or at least it will be hidden from start to finish. If you're in New York, Mars will go behind the moon at 9:21 and reemerge behind the moon at 10:37 tonight. So again, it's in essence an eclipse. If you go outside right now, or right after Joe and Joe is done, step outside and look at the moon, which is full tonight, you will see Mars off to the left of the moon, shining like a bright orange yellow star, and the moon moving in its path around the Earth will take it closer and closer and closer to Mars until finally Mars will go behind the moon on the left side and reemerge on the right side. And it's an unusual sight. It happens on average about every 14 years or so, on average. And one of those nights is tonight. So if you're out and about, take a look. The best views will be with binoculars or even a small telescope to see again this eclipse of the planet Mars tonight, an occultation taking place right in your neighborhood.
And an occultation. That's a good word, Joe. That's a dollar. That's a 7.99 word, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, it's also illegal in several southern states. Um,
Yeah.
but I do want to show, just to show everybody, I still have snow cover. Nah, 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 nah. I had to rub it in. I mean, 4 days, Joe. I got 4 days of snow cover here. And by the way, I moved into my house. Uh, I moved into my cabin here in North Georgia 4 years ago today. And because it showed up, I got a Google thing on my phone showing the pictures that I took that day when I moved in. It actually snowed that day when I moved in. It was
Really?
snowing. Yeah. It's at least what that's, I don't remember it that way, but that's what the video showed. So
So this is an unusual event for you, in essence.
what, the snow from Friday?
Yeah, I mean, it's not often you get as much
No,
snow
this
as
is
you.
the no, and I've had a couple of times where I've gotten a coating, an inch or an inch and a half. But this is the first. I was waiting for, for me, it was like, when am I going to get the first 3 inch snowfall? That was sort of the line in the sand for me, was 3 inches. And I got it. It took 4 years, 4 years here, but I did get it. Um, but that's more snow than what you've had so far this season.
And I'm sure it's people are getting the people who are the snow lovers. You're rubbing it in right now.
Oh yeah, well across the mid south and mid south and the deep south, the percentage of normal is in some places it's over 100% of normal so far. In some places it may even be higher than that. So anyway, I know I really won't rub it in anymore. Okay, this is my last time to rub it in because honestly, after 4 days, I kind of wish it would go away. I really want it to go away. It's hard to walk your dog who's always looking for his spot.
Does
And
your dog do what my dog does and like to stick his nose in the snow?
well, he, yeah, but my dog sticks his nose in the snow because he hears something underground and then he starts digging. Okay. Um, but normally when I take him out, he goes to do number one in the evening right away. And he doesn't do number two. He does number two in the morning, and then he's good until the next day. But he does his number one, and I take him out within about 2 minutes. He does it, and he's gone. But with the snow cover, he's going to his spots. He can't find his spots. We have to go to other spots, and on it goes. And I'm standing outside last night, and it was 17, and I'm freezing to death. And it's like, can we get this over with, please?
Yes,
You
exactly.
know.
I
Don't you
posted
really?
on Facebook from the cartoon from the comic strip for better or for worse. Farley, the sheepdog, the daughter took Farley out, and the first three panels you see him doing exactly what you just described, going back and forth, sniffing, and it was a freezing cold night. You could see her bundled up, and finally the last panel, you see in a gigantic balloon here, go to scare the living
It's
daylights.
true.
And that's how we all feel, all of us dog lovers, when you take our dogs out. It's amazing. It may be like 0 degrees, but when the dog has to go, he can't just go. He
Right.
has to go back
Right.
and
Back in
forth,
the find.
back and forth. And you're dying, like you're freezing.
But when he has to go to number two, he starts, walking in circles.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
with the snow cover on the ground, it was because he'd find near his spot, he'd walk in a circle, and I'm like, okay, great, he's finally gonna go, and he starts to kind of go into that squat position. No, then he stops, and then he has to go. Then he goes like a few feet away, starts the circle again, and then he stops, and I'm like, go already, just go. Exactly. All right, folks, back tomorrow
Ruben,
night.
wait a minute, I just have to answer. Ruben Fairchild has been asking over and over again on the chat board, is Betelgeuse about to die? Betelgeuse, of course, is that huge red star in the constellation of Orion, the Hunter. And to answer Mr. Fairchild's question, and by the way, his nickname tonight is It Never Snows in New York.
Right.
I think it does snow every once in a while, but as we all know, stars produce their energy by fusing hydrogen into helium deep within their cores. So when a star accumulates sufficient helium in its core, its energy output begins to increase significantly, and then it swells up into what Betelgeuse is, a red giant star, or even a supergiant star. Now, when you get a supergiant star, like Betelgeuse, the core produces successively heavier elements in order to balance the incessant crunch of gravity. But once the core begins to create iron, that's when a star's days are numbered. the formation of elements heavier than iron consume rather than produce energy. So eventually the core gets heavier and heavier and heavier until finally it can no longer support the star's vast weight and it just collapses upon itself, triggering a cataclysmic supernova explosion. Now, to answer Mr. Fairchild's question, is Betelgeuse about to die? In the overall scheme of things and the overall scale of time, yeah, it's about, because 100,000 years is just like a drop in the bucket when you talk about the age of the universe, the known age of 13.8 billion. But Betelgeuse is in its final stages, and it could explode sometime within the next 100,000 years. So, Mr. Fairchild,
they better start posting it on Facebook
yes, exactly.
and put on here. This is not a forecast.
Yes.
All right. Back tomorrow night at 7:35, folks. We'll take you on another model adventure, so we'll see you then. Night, night.